Hey guys, it's Jacoya of Jacoya Gems. Thank you once again for coming back to view my channel. If you have not already done so, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you have done so, thanks y'all. Like, honestly, I do not get excited about much. I'm a very much so wait till it happens type of person, but to see my following go up, it makes me feel some type of way. I don't know. Thank you guys so much for all the comments, for all the love, for all the likes, for all the shares. And I just hope that as my channel grows, that I'm able to put out more content. I have a busy life, you guys. As you may or may not know, I'm a mom. And so even with that, a lot of content I put out, some people would be like, how can she feel that way? Because I learn. Now, with that being said, go ahead and do me a favor, like this video, comment, share, and see your social media platforms. So what we're going to do, we're getting back into some educational, biblical, esoteric, historical. Y'all about to see just a little different side of me. I like comic books, okay? I'm sorry, Father. I like graphic novels. My father taught me better than that. For those of you who don't know, my daddy's Batman. It's a running saying in our family, like, you have never seen my father and Batman in the same room at once. So with that being said, on today we're going to talk about Atlantis. I'm not going to be on camera much because I'm hopping around in this tab. Y'all gonna hear me clicking. You guys know, if you ever studied with me before, ever hypothesized with me before, you know how this go. I'm not going to go super in depth as I can with all things. I am going to name quite a few different deities in correlation with one another. And then I will do some smaller videos focusing on one deity at a time and just like branch off onto there. So with that being said, I'm about to go off scene and we're going to step into some of the things that they put out before us in entertainment and in movies, so that you guys can see how when I watch movies, when I watch TV, as well as my children, we do it in a certain way. And it's for educational purposes, so therefore we can be entertained, but we can see the message behind it. So with that being said, this is one of my favorite movies. This is Aquaman.
Surface. No one's going to take me seriously. Okay, I don't even know where to begin.
By winning the hearts and minds of the people, by proving to them that you're worthy, and retrieving this.
I already got one of those.
Not like this one, you don't. This is the lost Trident of Atlantis.
Oh, I know the story.
It's more than a story. It's real. It was forged by the greatest weapon masters in history. Crafted from Poseidon steel for King Atlan, the first ruler of Atlantis. Legend says the Trident was imbued with the power to command the sea.
So what happened to it?
To know that is to go back to the time before the Great Fall, when King Atlan ruled over all that was, when the kingdoms of Atlantis were one. It was a time of great prosperity and technological advancement. We had unlocked the secret of unlimited energy at a time when the rest of the world still thought the Earth was flat. But we became too ambitious, too hungry for power. The ocean swallowed us, and Atlantis sank. But the very power that collapsed our civilization also paved the way to our future. It gave us the ability to breathe underwater. And so we evolved. Others regressed, became savage. And the king lived out the remainder of his days in self-imposed exile. Neither he nor the Trident were ever seen again.
Okay, so as we see in Aquaman, that scene started in the desert. So we're going to see exactly what significance not only did this have the desert, um, this technology that they used. As you see, they said that they built up this technology. They were a very smart people, and they had different type of kingdoms amongst them, and they began to tap into something, and they began to be puffed up. And so when they built this technology, an explosion took place. And what happened? Everything flooded, and that civilization, some of it was wiped out and kept in the subterranean world, while parts of it still continued to live above Earth. But that technology existed once before. So we're going to now go into who the god was of this so-called Atlantis, as they name. So here we go. Let me take myself off screen once again. It's not necessary. I need to be on screen. So in Greek mythology, Atlas is a titan condemned to uphold the heavens or sky for eternity. So he is like the firmament. Okay, keep this in mind. Atlas plays a role in the myths of two of the greatest Greek heroes, Hercules, come on now, and Perseus. According to the ancient Greek poet Hesiodus, Atlas stood at the ends of the earth in the extreme west. And so we see him upholding the earth. Now, we also see that his children would be, we're going to focus on the Pleiades. And you guys will see why very soon. The Pleiades, Atlas. And so, what does this say? The etymology of the name Atlas is uncertain. Virgil took pleasure in translating etymologies of Greek names by combining them with adjectives that explain them. For Atlas, his adjective is durus, meaning hard or enduring, which suggested to George Dog, okay, that Virgil was aware of the Greek to endure. So when we see this, the Native American name for the mountain, I'm sorry, the North African. See, I'll be reading in too much. So, okay, I'm sorry, you guys. The North African. So you see that it says, since the Atlas Mountains arise in the region inhabited by Berbers. So this is talking, okay? Where does the biblical narrative take place in? The Levant, North Africa, the East. They migrated down into West Africa. So this is all going back to something, and everything loops into one another. It says the king of Atlas, according to Plato, the king of Atlas. Atlantis was also Atlas. Okay, it was the son of Poseidon. So we're going to see who Poseidon is and Gia. And so his mother Gia, as we see in Greek mythology, Gia, she would have been personified as the earth. This is very important to remember, as well as to seeing that they are steady mentioning Phoenicians, Ethiopia, Mauritania. And why is this? Because it is supposed that the people who believe in Atlantis believe in Pangea. And this is something we will get into as we continue to go through these narratives. So we'll just go to Poseidon from here. And so Poseidon was one of the 12 Olympians. 12, 12, 12. What is the significance in the number 12 with the ancients? We will get into that. It's so much. He had a cult titled Earth Shaker. So if Poseidon was Atlas and he was the god of Atlantis and he had the power to shake the earth through this technology, he was the king of the sea, god of the storms, earthquake, and horses. It said his symbol was the Trident. We're going to go there. The fish, the dolphin, the horse, and the bull. So he could not only be personified as a sea god, but also a bull. That's very interesting to me. Very, very interesting. So it begins to talk about him in Athens, as well as his Roman counterpart, Neptune, which we are definitely going to delve into. And so we see that Poseidon means a husband of earth. This, I need you guys to remember that. It keeps talking about the husband of earth, linking into Poseidon, Gia, the husband of earth. Okay, let's talk about Aju, Zeus, a feminine variant of Poseidon, is also found in the, you guys, this is a lot. It's talking about the Minoan culture. The Minoan, okay, I wasn't even going to go all the way here. But let's type in, oh, maybe I don't even know. I will, just to show you guys some things. So the Minoan culture, the old kingdom of Egypt, copper, bearing, Cyprus, Canaan, and the Levant, the coast in Anatolia. Is this not where parts of the Bible, the biblical narrative, was taking place? It began to talk about how the Minoans primarily wrote in linear scripts about what began to take place and about these unclear theories with the Macedonian invasions from the Greece and the major volcanic eruption of CERN. Tonya, like, wasn't this talked about in Aquaman? They was over in Seratini, over in Greek. After they got washed out of the Saharan desert. Because I don't know if you guys noticed in the beginning of that, they were in the desert. And so the Mahomet culture, let me see. I believe I have a tab up on that as well, so that we can continue to learn. You guys, do me a favor, if you are this far along in the video, comment and share this to your social media platforms. We are going somewhere with this teaching right now. And so since we are mentioning Greek culture, now when I play this video, I want you guys to know that this is a brother. He's a Native American. He identifies as a Hebrew. And while I agree with some things he say, I cannot agree with everything. But he has some scholarship and he reads from some sources. Some things I've vetted, and that's why I don't agree, because I understand the source material. However, we are going to use this as a source because, as I said, this brother is sharp in a lot of ways. So let's talk about what the Greeks thought.
Greek and Roman scholars knew of the existence of the Western continent. It says here, that ancient book entitled the Book of Wonders, ascribed to Aristotle, contained the following. When the Carthaginians, who were masters of the Western Ocean, observed that many traders and other men, attracted by the fertility of the soil and the pleasant climate, had fixed their homes, they feared that the knowledge of this land should reach other nations. A great concourse to it of men from the various lands of the earth would follow. That the conditions of life then so happy on that island would not only be unfavorably affected, but the Carthaginian empire itself suffer injury, and the dominion of the sea be wrested from their hands. And so they issued a decree that no one, under penalty of death, should thereafter sail thither. And they're talking about America. This passage is quoted not merely with a claim that it refers to the continent of America, but for the purpose of showing how carefully the Phoenician people, whether Asiatic, Carthaginian, or Spanish, guarded from the great world the foreign discoveries which they had made, and where their kindred were enjoying prosperity, and to enable us to see how little likely their discoveries would be to come to the knowledge of the great mass of mankind. Let us look for a moment at some of the things which ancient Greeks and Latin authors have said indicating their knowledge of the existence of a Western continent. Crates, a commentator on Homer, is quoted by authority of Strabo, a very learned author of the century before Christ, as saying that Homer means in his account of the Western Ethiopians. Western Ethiopians. All right, so what do they mean by Western Ethiopians? So who's the Eastern Ethiopians? Also, there's two. All right, so I know we mentioned this before. If you've watched Con Drop and follow Drop Nation, you know about the three Ethiopias, or the farthest Ethiopia, which is America, Ethiopia, right? Etymology, burnt skin, or people of dark skin in Ethiopian, right? So there was people of dark skin in the Americas as well. So the Western Ethiopians, right? So this author is letting you know that when they're saying Western Ethiopians, they're talking about the Americas. So it says here that as saying that Homer means in his account of the Western Ethiopians, the inhabitants of the Atlantis or the Hesperides. There we go. Again, the Atlantis or the Hesperides, as the unknown world of the West was then previously called. So real quick, I just wanted to show you what I meant about the three Ethiopias and what they were talking about in the Middle Ages, and what was known in the Middle Ages and referenced a lot in the Middle Ages. I'm in the book here, Lost Tribes and Promised Lands by Ronald Sanders. All right. So this book correlates a lot of the story or mythology or myths of Prester John, which, AKA, we see most likely was King David, and his land, or the empire of Prester John, emperor of the Ethiopians, was actually in the whole Americas. All right.
Now, like I said, I'm not saying that this man was King David. However, I do think it's very important to point out that the ancients began to talk about three Ethiopias, and they talked about Pangea and the earth and the world being connected, and Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt and having a Western world and an Eastern world. And we even know that today that the Americas is referred to as the Eastern world, and over in the other side of the world is considered the Eastern world. What I find very, very interesting, and I'm not saying that America is something other than what's been said. I'm just reading and hypothesizing and sharing information with you as we go along. So, with that being said, you see that the Greeks began to mention Carthaginians, and he showed the black Minoans and the black people of ancient Greek and ancient Rome, and steady tying in the Phoenicians. So here we go. Let's talk about ancient Carthage. And so we see that this was a state that was all throughout West Asia, West Africa, and North Europe, okay? And that this commercial empire was secured by one of the largest and most powerful places in the Mediterranean, as you see. The Iberians, which would be Spain, the Gauls, the Britons. There's so many interesting theories about the Britons and the Sicilians and the Italians and the Greeks and the Libyans. And when you begin to look into the etymology of what a lot of people are hypothesizing about these groups, they're hypothesizing that a lot of them were Negroid in origin, or mix and mingle amongst the Negroid people. Carthaginians are definitely black. Now, I want you guys to pay attention to the moon emblem and the sun crescent. Okay. as well as this signet right here. Now we have to remember the Alpha. I have to remember the triangle, the Trinity. I have to remember the Omega. All right? Like, all of this is very important. And all of this is African in origin. You see, the Punic people were a Semitic people in Western Mediterranean who migrated from Tyre, remember that, Phoenician, to North Africa during the Middle Ages. And so what we must remember is that Semites came from Shem, but we also have to know that some Hamitic tribes were considered Afro-Asiatic. These are the ones who came from Kush, the Nubians, or those who inhabited the Sudan, the Arabic people of Ham. But you could also have some Hebraic amongst this as well. So let's keep in mind all of this Black influence. Let's continue to learn on our way to learn. Definitely about to open up another tab so we could keep learning. I want this video to be as educational as possible without taking up too much. So let's talk about Poseidon. We talked about Poseidon some, okay? But let's talk about Sidon, Tyre, and Zidon, since we are mentioning Phoenicians and the culture of Phoenicia. So where does Sidon come from? Tyre and Zidon were two of the most important cities in ancient Phoenicia. This is very important. Tyre and Zidon is mentioned in the Bible so much. Mentioned in algorithms and hidden jewels and gems all over the place. So it says the city hosts 3 of the 12 Palestinian. Okay, we're not even going to go into that. I'm not even going to go into that. But you guys see that it was the earliest Phoenician metropolis and the legendary birthplace of Europia. Hold on, wait a minute. So they're saying that Europe was birthed out of the Mediterranean, out of Tyre and Zidon, out of ancient Phoenicia, out of North Africa? Is that what they're saying? Early names of Tyre included Akkadian. What? Phoenician? Hebrew? Meaning rock or the rocky? Oh no. Wait a minute. In Middle English, we're going to get to the Middle English and all of that. So are you guys making these connections? And to talk about Lebanon. Oh, I wasn't even going to go here. I wasn't even thinking about that. Let's see if I can find an article on this since this is just impromptu. Very impromptu. Let's see what comes up. And I'm not, I'm going to just say this. In the Garden of Eden, it was described in the book of Ezekiel 28, in the book of Ezekiel 31, and in the book of Genesis 2 through 3. The way that it was described, according to some narratives, is to be located around the Lebanon area. Now, if we are thinking about when the earth was connected, we just have to begin to suppose how big this garden could be. It's a lot of mentions of the Garden of Eden and the trees of Lebanon and the Garden of the Gods, as it is called. You had cherubim in this garden, okay? And it begins to even talk about Ethiopia in connection with the Garden of the Gods. And the narrator of this was Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh Elohim. This is a lot of learning on your way to learning if we let it be. I'm going to link these down. As you guys see, it's even these articles begin to talk about Garden of Eden, the Garden of the Gods, the Garden of the Gods, the mountains, mountaintop theology. Let's begin to make some correlations between Tyrian, Zidon, Poseidon, and I don't like that. And Africa even more. So now we see that Poseidon, Aquaman, they are represented by the Trident, correct? They are called to be the god of the land, god of the sea. So let's see. First of all, if you guys remember in Genesis 1, it begins to talk about, let's just pull it up. So I won't be accused of reaching or anything of that nature, you know. Genesis 1, Tohu, BOHU. Tohu wa BOHU. This is a saying that describes the condition of the earth immediately before creation, unseen and unformed, without form and void. So the only other place this is seen also is Tohu and BOHU is the book of Isaiah, verse 30, chapter 34 and 11. And it begins to talk about the emptiness of the earth and being without form and without void. And this is very, very important because a lot of people begin to make correlations between certain chapters of the Bible and the book of Genesis and the creation. But although I don't speak the language, I know some people who do. And I've studied and I've placed some lines, and some things just do not fit the way that we want them to fit with Noah's flood. And there's a reason that certain things don't make sense. So when you begin to look at the book of Psalms, and it begins to talk about, praise the Lord, my soul. Lord my God, you are very great. You are clothed in splendor and majesty. The Lord wraps himself in light as a garment. And he stretches out the heaven, this sounds like creation, like a tent, and lays the beam of his upper chambers on their waters firmament. He makes the cloud his chariot, and he rides on the wings of the wind. It sounds like a lot. I'm not even going to go into Zoroastrianism. He makes winds his messenger, flames of his fire his servant. Okay? So let's talk more. He set the earth on foundations. It can never be moved. You cover it in watery depths, watery depths as with a garment. The water stood above the mountains, okay? And at your rebuke, the waters fled. And at the sound of your thunder, they took flight. They flowed over the mountains. They went down into the valley to the places you assigned for them. You set a boundary they cannot cross. Never again will they cover the earth. So the bound was set in Genesis 1. So this is how we say this is not connected to Noah's flood because, okay, Noah had a flood, but the bounds was already set. He makes springs pour into the ravens. It flows between the mountains. They give water to all the beasts of the fields, the wild donkeys of the air. We continue on and we see, okay? And then he begins to go into creation about what begins to happen. I don't know. I'm not saying that this is what it is. I'm just saying that this is interesting. I am not saying that this is what it is. I'm just saying that some way, somehow, some things have to begin to make sense at one point or another when we begin to read outside of ourselves and tap into the culture of what was being said, not of how we feel, not of what we think. So let's begin to see, is there a god of the sea in Mesopotamia or Ugaritic, Canaan, Israelites, cosmetology? Yam is Semitic. It's the god of the sea in the Canaanite pantheon. And we see that his Greek equivalent is Poseidon. Now, if we know anything, the Most High, he was the power of the Levant, of the Canaanites, of the Assyrians, of the Babylonians, of the Israelites, the Ishmaelites, the Midianites, and so on and so forth. And they broke a covenant. This is why the Bible begins to describe the Assyrians and the Egyptians as his people and as his handiwork. Let's continue. He was one of the sons of El, meaning sea. Yam means sea. And of all the gods, despite being the champion of El, Yam holds hostility against Baal Hadad. Ooh, that's the son of Dagon. Dagon is a fish deity, you guys. Okay, it's the deity of the sea, and his palace is in the abyss, associated with the depths, or the biblical Tehom. We're going to go here and see what Tehom means and who Tehom is represented as. And it also begins to say that Yam has been equated with, I don't want to butcher that, but it's a destroys or a dragon or the sea. 7-head dragon, LOTAN. So we're going to go there because I have something open. I'm just clicking around here because I have all of these different tabs open on the same thing. So it means the deep. Tehom means the deep. See, this is leading you back to Genesis 1 and 2. And so they begin to even tie this into Genesis 7 with Noah's flood. But then when I begin to talk about the bounds being set and them not being able to overflow again, says nothing about that in Noah's flood. I'm going to just be completely honest, okay? And so it begins to say that the deep pre-existed Elohim. Hold up. So the sea that was present in Genesis 1 pre-existed Elohim, or as some would say, Anunnaki. That's what some would say, because Anu, what we're going to get into, and Ki, their children would be Anunnaki. And so in Kabbalistic, or the esoterical aspects of biblical knowledge, combined with some Hellenistic theories, as well as some other things, begins to call this Shio, but also it's a Hebrew word. Everything's not spoken. And so let's look into, you guys remember, it begins to talk about the dragon. I want to go into the Tehom really quick though. I'm going to go into Tehom. So Tehom and Leviathan can fit biblical narratives that lead us back to Babylon. And so when you look at, Tiamat is the primordial goddess. And so what I want you guys to be very aware of is, just because it said Elohim, or the sons of God, does not mean that feminine powers were not represented. Because when you look into Spanish, so to speak, if you say nosotros, that does not mean that women are not there. It just means that the masculine is more dominant. So we're going to call the group by the dominant. That does not mean that feminine is not there. So we see that she was represented as a sea serpent or a dragon, right? And that her consort was Abzu. And Abzu literally means water. And so this is why some people believe that the Bible takes from Chaldean culture and begins to subjugate it, failing to realize that the people in the Bible were from this land, and they were just passing down oral history from their vantage point based off of how they worshiped once upon a time. Okay, so it means the glistening one, and sea serpent or dragon. Now, Leviathan. Leviathan was also noted as a sea serpent, and he would also tie back into Lotan or into Yam. And so now we're going to be completely honest. There are parallels to the roles of Mesopotamian Tiamat defeated by Marduk. And it goes in line with the book of Isaiah, chapter 27 and 1. And it sounds it sounds very, very, very identical. So I'm not going to read all of these scriptures, but you see, and I would say Job 38 as well. These scriptures right here begins to talk about the Leviathan is mentioned in the Tanakh in Job 3 and 8, Job 40, 15 through 41 and 26, Psalm 74 and 14, Psalms 106 and 26, twice in Isaiah 27 and 1, Job 41. And this just begins to talk about it. And so if you know anything about the book of Job, the book of Job is pretty old. Pretty old. And it begins to even talk about this in the book of Enoch. See, some things were removed for a reason, so that we would never gain certain knowledge of how this world truly works. I'm not going to be on this video much longer. There's so much information that I could show, and that I'm not really going to delve into, just to save myself some time, as well as to watch. So we're going to talk about the representation of the Ankh and the Trident. And so you guys see that this begins to have some correlations between the name Enki and the Ankh. And now they hit on some things here and said the ancient Sumerian, the god Enki, whose name is Anki. Because you know when you break down linguistics, when you see the EN and then the AN and then the key and then the key, like come on. And Ki means king. The name Anki holds the esoteric meanings, means An means heaven, and Ki means earth. And this was the union, okay? And it talks about that Ankh is the symbol of Venus. And it means that the Ankh is the symbol of eternal life. So this is what the origin of the Ankh is. And Enki, we're just going to type in things. Who is Enki? Enki is the Sumerian god of water and creation, and one of the Anunnaki, which we're going to tap into, okay? And his cult was spread throughout Mesopotamia, Canaanites, Hittites, Iranians, and this is what we begin to talk about. The Levant, the Sumerians. This is him. So it's a fertility god, represented by the goats and the fish, okay? All of these things tie into one another. His name meaning life. Spring, running water, the house of water. All of these things point back to Babylon. And so it begins to talk about the creation story. And so let's look into, since everyone wants to talk about the Anunnaki, and it's just like, oh, it's freaky aliens. Like, y'all be bugging because Anunnaki literally means the children of Anu and Ki. An is Anum, and he's the sky god. Or he could say On in ancient Egypt. On. The cult of On, we see it all throughout the Bible. He has a daughter named Ishtar. It's so much. I'm a hold back, y'all. I'm a hold back. I am. I'm a hold back because it's so much. And his wife went by the name of Ki. And that's how you have Anunnaki. He is the god of the sky, and he is the mother of the earth. And so when you look at Poseidon, when you look at these movies, they're telling us a lot. And there's so much more that I have on this. So much more. Particle accelerator, all of that. But we're going to close out. And I hope I've done some justice by tying some of these things and these theories back to Africa. It's going to be a part 2, part 3, part 4 on all of this because Plato did not start quoting and talking about Atlantis until the Middle Ages. And we're going to delve into see what was happening in the Bible during the Middle Ages. So thank you guys. This is Jacolia of Jacolia Gems. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to this video. Signing out.